Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Lisa.
Hi, Debs.
Are you okay?
I'm great. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well, thank you. Today, we wanted to talk about obesity. Lisa and I have differing opinions on parts of obesity, but I just read a report from the government this morning about obesity statistics and the summary of obesity in Britain. Basically, it's a 28-page report about the current situation. 63% of the population in the UK are now overweight or obese in varying, degrees. So it's a huge problem. That's more than half our population are overweight or obese. And for me, the reason I wanted to bring it up and talk about it was because what I got from the findings, apart from the stats about, how many people are obese and how many people go on to have weight loss surgery or obesity-related health issues like diabetes and etc. What irritated me about the report was, at the beginning, it sort of says what the government should do about obesity going forward for the next generations, for the children, etc., and for now. But it was all should. We should look into it further to find out what obesity really is and whether it could be described as a disease. We could put a framework, or should put a framework in that helps people who are obese to get the right kind of help. We should do this, we should do that, and it was all like that. And for me, that sort of pushed my buttons, because it felt like it was paying lip service, that there was no real accountability from the government, and there was no we are going to do this, we are going to do that. It was sort of like summarizing things like, well, should we call obesity a disease? Is it we should look into the facts to find out if that is the case. Well, why aren't we? Why haven't we beforehand? Why are we not looking? And like and this might sound really ignorant, but if alcoholism is a disease and is classed as a disease, then why isn't obesity, which is obviously caused by eating excess food or addiction to food, why is that not why is that not considered a disease? There's so much stigma in society about being overweight that it puts people like, for example, myself, before, when I weighed 21.5 stone, I had felt awful anyway. I felt an outcast in society. I was judged by people, and that wasn't just my perception. I was actually judged. I was ridiculed. I was bullied. People would look at me in the street and say horrible things. My family would say horrible things to me. So I felt awful anyway. So when I actually got up the courage to go to my GP and say, I've tried every diet out there and it's not working, and I was ignorant to the fact that a lot of my problems are psychological, but I went and asked for help, and it was shunned. There is a definite stigma, and there's definitely a prejudgment of people who are overweight, that they're lazy and they just eat too much. And I think the first time I went and asked for help, I came out feeling worse than I did when I went in there. So I felt a failure because I couldn't just stick to the diet they'd given me. So I felt even worse, and I came out with antidepressants. But I wasn't depressed, but that's what I came out with, because I trusted that GP. That GP made me feel like I was just crap and gave me some antidepressants. So then I went down that, and that's so there's lots of people out there that will do that. Now, I've got tenacity, and I won't stop trying until I reach where I want to be. But there are people out there who are 20, 30, 40 stone who will not go back, and who will live in isolation thinking that the help isn't out there. But that's not true. The help is out there, but it's just so strictly and badly organised. you know, the different tiers that you have to go through, the different hoops you have to go through. So how many people actually give up? I didn't give up, but how many people actually give up and just go, I'm just going to die of diabetes, or just get bigger and bigger and bigger?
Probably difficult on just that bit to know how many deaths are caused through obesity or obesity related, because it could go in the diabetes category and you wouldn't necessarily know if it was diabetes caused or contributed to obesity, or just diabetes and they weren't obese. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but I think when I read the report, I think the crux of that, from what you were saying about why they say we could or we should be doing this, is that, is it a disease? And there's two camps that say yes, and then there's no. And until it is classed as a disease, it won't get the funding and it won't get the framework. But then the other camps are saying if you class it as a disease, it then becomes a label, they then become disabled, and there's a segment of those people that will then feel that they are not responsible. They can blame the disease, they think they'll be able to get a pill to fix them or something else, and then it takes the responsibility of autonomy for them to be able to do something away. So I think that is the crux of it, is the indecision around whether it's a disease or not. And alcoholism is an addiction, but I think there are genetic precursors or predisposition to that. But I would class that as an addiction more than a disease, as in that you can't catch it from somebody. Diseases aren't always just that you can catch them, but a disease, for me, gives you the notion that there's a cure.
Right.
In a pill, medicine, drug form, or chop it out, you know, type thing. Whereas an addiction, alcohol, drugs, or food, does to me feel less of a pill type cure and more of a psychological, emotional cure. So I think that's where this, from me looking at the two things today, I looked at that report and I looked at a different report from a nutrition side of point of view, that until they decide, they're almost, no one's going to do anything about it.
That's what bugged me about the report, because it kept saying we should look into it, we should find out if this is a disease or not. I'm not sure whether it's a disease or not. And I would have said 6 months ago or a year ago, I would have said it's not a disease, it's psychological, it's emotional, it's that. But having my group is almost like having a research tank, because I see all of these people from different walks of life going through this, and then I see people getting better and being more holistic and being a success after weight loss surgery. And then I see people who then liquidize cheeseburgers or Mars bars or whatever. So, and who are addicted, but not just from a psychological addicted to something to numb the pain or to absorb something, actually addicted to the food, as in the salt or the sugar or the fast food, the crap that they put in fast food. So, you know, I've started to question whether there are more elements to it, but that's not for us to decide. The government should be taking the time to look into it, because this isn't 2 or 3% of the population. This isn't like a small problem. This is an epidemic which is growing and growing and growing. So therefore, we need to understand it. And it's all right just putting it in a line, oh, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. Why aren't we actually finding out whether it is a disease or all the elements of it? Because I think there's the addictive side, emotional addiction, and then there's an actual physical addiction to foods, to certain foods. So why don't we know? We should know all about that.
Maybe because there's more money in feeding the people the chemicals to make them want more of it than
And that's the scary part. That's the scary part.
And it's not just the obesity, it's then all the sort of ongoing other problems that they get, such as diabetes or B12 deficiency. So depression, all these other things that they can then chuck drugs at. So why would they want to cure them?
But if they don't, what's going to happen? If we're 63% now and rising, well, what the heck is going to happen?
You'll have more people addicted to antidepressants, less able to get up and do something, I think, to change the government. It will be a dumbed down, overweight, sedentary society that won't take action, and that's an ideal. I think that's ideal for them. They can make money off selling them drugs in the form of medicine.
Yeah. But everybody be bloody isolated. They'll all be on the internet, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, getting no help from it, and be lethargic and not want to take part in life. So that's what we're going to end up. The society's going to end up with people just sitting in their homes.
The one thing on that report that really jumped out at me was about not allowing advertising of high sugar, high fat, junk food or whatever until after 9 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
God, children. Mostly, if you go to the supermarket, it's not the children pushing the trolleys paying for it with their debit card.
Exactly.
It's parents. So how does a 9 p.m. watershed suddenly make the parents stop buying it for the children, which is where I think the problems start?
Yeah.
You know, so that bit totally floored me, because people...
What difference is that going to make?
Yeah.
And that was still a should. It wasn't we are going to. It was still we should do this.
But if they know that those adverts for those products are unhealthy, why are they not banning them in their entirety?
Yes, exactly.
It's going to show them to the people that have the purchasing power. Okay, then.
Yeah.
So that was just bonkers to me, that one.
Yeah, because obviously, like my 7-year-old, if he sees an advert about he's going to just pop out with his credit card and go to the local shop and get himself a, whatever it is on high sugar. Of course not.
I mean, is it just the children that are obese? No, it's the grown-ups. So, they need to not be shown the adverts if they literally are that stupid that they'll go and see something and then go and buy it. That's a thought process that they've got to decide whether they want that or not, whether it's healthy for them or not.
Yeah.
My youngest son said to me one day, if cigarettes are so bad for you, why did the government allow people to sell them in shops?
Yeah.
Because the government makes more money.
Glorify them in films. Or glorify them in films.
Yeah.
It's got better lately, but still people smoke on films. And like a few years ago, it was a cool thing, wasn't it?
Well, they could just stop selling them in shops and make it harder to get hold of. But no, because they want the revenue from them.
Yeah.
I think it's the same with food. It's the same with junk food. Sugar tax. Okay, so instead of not selling the foods, let's still sell it, but we'll charge more for it so we get more money. So they're going to profit off of people's bad food behaviours. They're not stopping the food, they're just putting the price up with a tax so that they get more. That's like saying, we know it's addictive and we're going to make more money out of your addiction.
It's just wrong. It's just wrong. It mentioned Jamie Oliver. Sorry. It mentioned Jamie Oliver. And do you remember that a few years ago when he was like campaigning and he was like outside schools and he did all those programs and that? Very little changed for all that man's efforts and the things that went through Parliament. Very little changed, because I can tell you now, Ollie eats school dinners and it's still crap.
Oh yes, it's worse, I think.
Yeah, so very little changed in that time.
It's horrendous. I wouldn't eat it, and a lot of the teachers don't, but they'll happily feed it to our children.
Yeah. Don't you just love that?
Yeah, it was bonkers. So I live in Cornwall, and when this happened, I lived in the Wild West, And we're surrounded by potato fields that actually supply Walkers, really good quality potatoes. So we're surrounded by them. And the school dinner, Tristan came home one day and went, the mashed potato, I nearly puked. So he said it was like grey applesauce. I went in there. What are you making a mashed potato? Oh, well, it comes like, we just have to add water to it. I'm like,
Oh no, it's
kidding
smashed.
me. There are fields of potatoes out there. Get some real ones and mash them up. All you've got to do is boil them or steam them and mash them. And they couldn't be doing that because that was, you know, the catering company, who, whatever. It was just bonkers to me. There was less food miles and it would have been cheaper to buy to the local organic farmers. They could have had real potatoes. And
Yeah, but then, Lisa, somebody would have had to have peeled them and put them in a pan. And obviously that is far too much effort for anybody to do, to peel a potato.
You get automatic peelers, but I mash mine with the skins on anyway because they're tastier. But it was just ridiculous. It was a school of a few hundred children, so I could in my kitchen make enough mashed potato for a few hundred children if I wanted to, if I knew that was going to be the thing of the day. But to actually reconstitute mashed potato in the middle of potato growing, it was just silly.
Yeah, it is. It's nuts. So nothing's really moved on since Jamie Oliver, you know, did what he did. So it makes you wonder what you'd have to do, you know, to get the right kind of attention, to get them to take it seriously.
I think they need to decide whether it's a disease or not.
Yeah.
And then if they decide it is a disease, then do the research and correct framework and the treatment according to that. And if they decide it isn't, then do the research, correct framework, and work out the treatment for that.
Yeah.
Because disease is more of a physical bodily cause of symptoms, whereas psychological, mostly, then there's grey areas, but if it's not a disease of the body, then it would be more of a psychological, emotional problem while they're overeating. And I think they need to decide that, and then they can actually then go and commit some money to it and say, it's a physical thing and this is what we're going to do. It's a mental thing. And I know there's going to be crossovers, but they have to put them sort of, you know, make the decision first.
Yeah, put their foot in a camp and stick to it. That whole report was just government all over, sitting on the frigging fence, just sitting on the fence going, well, we should do this and we could do that. But there was no commitment. It was just lip service, and it didn't really tell you anything. I was no wiser at the end of that than I was before. And but I already knew this, but all it did was reinforce the fact that it's a postcode lottery again. With if you live in a certain area, you know, you'll be offered this 4 tiers of help with obesity. You know, 1's like a diet plan, and 2's like meeting up with somebody, 3's something else, and then 4's weight loss surgery.
And with your experience, if you'd had that 4-tiered approach, would that have helped you? I looked at it and I actually didn't think it would. If someone was
needing not enough psychological stuff.
No, I was going to say, if someone was needing a proper intervention, that framework to me, the 4 steps, wouldn't, if I was, you know, in that position, wouldn't have reached me, wouldn't have encouraged me, wouldn't have made me accountable enough, and certainly wouldn't have fixed me to stop me getting to the end result. So
definitely not.
They're outlining something which I don't think in a lot of cases will work.
But the sad part is that even though that 4-tiered framework isn't probably going to work for most people anyway, because it's crap. Secondly, you have to be in a certain area to get that. So in other areas, you won't even be offered that anyway. So like, you won't even be offered the thing that's probably not going to work. And if you are, you have to jump through so many hoops. And if you don't tick one of the boxes, you're gone out of that equation. You know, you jump through about 25 hoops and you miss the 26th hoop.
That's GPs all over. You've got 25 symptoms, you haven't got the 26th, therefore there's nothing wrong with you. Yes, there is. I've got 25 out of 26 symptoms. No, that is the national health.
Yeah, because you're not going to tick those boxes, then you're not giving them that like whatever it is, that they've got to you're not fitting in with their stats, are you? And they're all stats driven.
Yes.
So if you're not fitting in with them stats, then you can't have it.
Yeah. So what do you think, in your experience, what would work? What's the first thing to you?
I think it's like people overeat for lots of different reasons. It could be stress, it could be like serious emotional issues like me, like that go a long way back, that are going to take a lot. I mean, that would have taken a lot of therapy, and the right kind of therapist, not some NHS person looking at their watch waiting for their hour to end and doesn't really give a toss about you. I've had that, but it's got to be a specialist. So if you get that kind of help, it might take a long time. If it's just something that you're using to relieve your stress instead of drinking or smoking, then that could be a shortish therapy session. Or some people are, and I don't mean this to be mean, but some people are ignorant. And I can't say that they don't know what to eat.
I think we all know what we should and shouldn't be eating nowadays.
Yes, but they make the wrong choices, and if so I think some of that is that food addiction I was talking about, where they're actually addicted to fast foods, they're actually addicted to the salt and the MSG and all the rest of the shit that's in food. So some of that, I'm not saying that that's right, but that is a factor. So for them, it's about weaning them off the sugar and the salt and the crap to a more healthier lifestyle, where they can cut out those things, and perhaps they need a bit of support and information on what to eat so that they still feel satisfied, but they're eating a healthy diet. So some people might need more support than others. Like, I know what you should and shouldn't eat, So, but I always did know what you should and shouldn't eat.
Yeah.
But I chose to self-destruct. I chose to enforce that on myself. So mine would have been psychological, and probably would have taken a specialist quite some time to unravel the stuff it took me 10 years to unravel.
And would you have been open to that at the time, or had you fixed in your mindset that surgery was the one and only option?
No, because I tried a long time before I got to the surgery route. Before I got to the surgery route, I read self-help books. I asked for therapy. I knew that I had issues that were making me feel like I wanted to do that, or to destruct in that way, but I didn't know what kind of therapist. So, and when I went to the GP was like, "Oh, you need a cognitive therapist," and then another GP said, "You need a psychologist or a psychiatrist," and like they didn't know really. And so I went to the cognitive therapist, and he was the one that kept looking at his watch. And so he was asking me to open up about my past, and some of my past is very difficult to talk about. But at the same time, looking at his watch and looking around bored and like doing this and that sort of thing, I didn't want to open up to him.
No, because you weren't connected to him, and he blatantly wasn't interested.
He wasn't interested in what I was saying. So I wasn't going to sit there and go, "Well, actually, I'm gonna divulge all this stuff to you," because he couldn't give him monkeys. So I did try before I got to that drastic stage. That was my last resort, because I thought, if I carry on doing this, I'm going to kill myself. Not literally kill myself, but kill myself with eating.
What was the difference then? I don't know if you can remember, but the last resort at that point was surgery. And subsequent to that, then you had other addictive behaviours, at which point you decided, no more, I'm going to do something else. And what was the difference between those addictive behaviours where you could say, no more, I'm stopping this now and I'm going to take another route, that you felt that before the surgery, that you couldn't say to yourself, no more excessive eating of things that I don't want to, and I'm going to change my behaviour rather than have surgery? Do you know what I'm saying? Was there a difference? Because I think that might be a crux of being able to help people to intervene at that level. What was the difference where you said, no more of this behaviour, I'm changing myself, where with the food and the overeating, you never reached that point of no more of this, I'm going to change myself?
Maturity and growth. I was ready for it. I was ready to acknowledge that the problems came from within me. Up until I lost the weight, I always looked for outside factors. So, like, I wondered if I had ADHD, so I got tested for that. I wondered if I was looking for some labelled problem that I could say that's why you do that. And
I do think that is that the problem would be with labelling it. That takes away the responsibility from the person. You can help yourself.
Agreed.
But at that point, I completely get that there will be a lot of people that are looking outwards because to look inward is too traumatic and too.
Yeah, it is.
And
I think it's a gradual thing.
Yeah, and so that's where pardon the pun, one size fits all doesn't actually work, because there are people,
different stages.
Yes, that can cope with a psychological intervention.
Yeah.
And other people that would do anything rather than that.
Yes.
And I think labelling and not labelling, that will be the crux of the problem. If you go down one route and label it as a disease, or you don't, you're going to miss that crux.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. I totally agree with you. I think you've got to be in the right place and be open to that. But you see, I did my own therapy because I gave up on all that. I tried so hard that I gave up on it. And so mine took a lot longer than it probably would with it definitely took a lot longer than it would with a professional, the right therapist, not just any professional, the right therapist who understands eating disorders and childhood trauma and how to, build from that. Then that therapy probably wouldn't take as long as it did for me. But mine was is a gradual awakening, and different stages I was open to listening or hearing what people were saying to me, and then being able to take that on, and then building on that, and then more growth and more awakening.
Yeah, and that is not a quick fix.
No.
That's the opposite, I think, of not just in weight loss surgery and obesity, in life in general. People want a quick fix. They don't want the pain and working on themselves. They'd rather have a physical pain and take the drug medicine to... The
problem is, food is a quick fix. Food, alcohol, smoking is a quick fix.
Yeah.
But then the long-term consequences of that are you are left with excess weight and health problems that are not a quick fix to sort out. So they're already in that mind frame, aren't they? Expecting it like a magic pill.
Yeah.
Because they want something instantly.
And psychological intervention or therapies won't give them that.
No.
I think that the ego is very clever at saying, no, this is the answer. And no matter what evidence you give it to the contrary, if that's the most desired option, that's the one, you know, you could literally give 100 reasons, and if someone's fixated on that, that's their cure, that will be the cure, and you won't be able to talk them out of it.
I'm case in point. All I saw was that. I went on the internet, saw this American girl who was a size 10, that's a 6 over there, or an 8,
Wow.
tiny, in a bikini, and she'd had weight loss surgery a couple of years before, and that was the point at which I went, everything else can go away, I'm just having that. Don't talk to me about anything else, don't say anything else, I'm going down that track. And you would not have been able to get me off that track if you'd given me £1 million. I was there. Yeah. And a lot of people go down that track. So in my group, sometimes people don't want to hear what I say, but it doesn't stop me, because the more open-minded you are, and the more you go in there prepared, like the best thing would be if you were so open-minded and you knew all the drawbacks about weight loss surgery that you didn't bloody have it, and that you got the right help to get you to lose weight naturally.
And that, to me, is the complete bonkers part of it, is that the food that you can't eat afterwards, and the way you have to limit what you do eat, is that if you could manage to do that before, you'd be able to rectify the situation that they're in. And there's no, afterwards, yes, there's cheating, but initially,
yeah, there's not.
The liquid diets and restrictions
and stuff, yeah.
They have to be able to do that the day after surgery. And it's like, wow, imagine if you could make yourself able to do that the day before surgery and then keep going. That is just bonkers, that to put your body through, to me, that trauma, and then enforced other medical problems that might arise. So you're going to do that the next day, so do it today. And then to me, that's the bit where only if someone's completely, I would say, emotionally kind of supported and able to make a very logical decision, that, you know, you could convince them. You're going to have all these restrictions anyway. Yes. So save yourself the scar, save yourself the trauma,
malabsorption,
save yourself the poison of the anaesthetic, save yourself B12 deficiency, save yourself leaky gut, because you might be having your gallbladder removed, but the gut bile duct still leaks into your stomach afterwards and gives you leaky gut forever. Then there's nothing you can do about that. All of those things you're creating because of the surgery, whereas if you managed to, probably you wouldn't have to be as bad of a diet before, you would still have the same effect. So that's the bit that me, I think, really needs, which I know you're doing, to get out there and say to people, life after surgery is probably more hideous. It certainly sounds like it to me. More hideous in terms of food choices and other things that happen than before. And yet I don't think people explain about that enough. And the only reason I can think why they don't is because it benefits them financially more for people to go through this.
Yeah.
If it was financially beneficial for them not to, I think that's where they would be focusing their efforts and their education and, you know, the health resources.
Yeah.
On that.
Agreed. It's a very emotive subject. But for me, it's a very emotive subject. I don't know where I was going with that, Lisa. You're going to have to cut it out.
Right, okay, I've got another one for you.